Washington. US President Donald Trump's visit to Beijing ended without the major breakthrough many had expected from his talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping. The summit instead highlighted the widening strategic gap between the two powers. Both sides projected warmth and stability during the two-day visit. But the meetings showed how difficult it has become to turn high-level engagements into meaningful cooperation on major issues such as Iran, Taiwan and technology.
For at least 2 decades, Hijri Road has been a nuisance for the people who live in Gulshan Town's Metroville colony. So when UC6 chairman Nasir Ashfaq managed to get the Karachi Development Authority to fix the inner neighbourhood service lane, they insisted on paver blocks this time. 3 years later, sewerage still overflows from time to time, but at least by the time they clean it up, there is still a road underneath the muck. US and Nigerian forces killed a senior commander in the ISIS militant group on Friday, President Donald Trump has said. Tonight, at my direction, brave American forces and the armed forces of Nigeria flawlessly executed a meticulously planned and very complex mission to eliminate the most active terrorist in the world from the battlefield, Trump said in a Truth Social post late Friday ET.
US President Donald Trump said on Friday that Abu Bilal al-Minuki, second in command of ISIS globally, had been eliminated in an operation conducted by US and Nigerian forces. Tonight, at my direction, brave American forces and the armed forces of Nigeria flawlessly executed a meticulously planned and very complex mission to eliminate the most active terrorist in the world from the battlefield.
Anthony Seldon has written biographies of each of the last 8 British Prime Ministers. When he embarked on the project in the 1990s, the work was mammoth but measured. Then, the occupants of 10 Downing Street would spend several years in office, allowing him to scrutinise his subjects properly as they each stamped themselves on their times. But Seldon now risks being overtaken by events. After the recent churn of leaders under the previous Conservative government, which saw the party cycle through 3 leaders in 1 year, Seldon had hoped that Keir Starmer's victory in 2024 would herald a return to political normality. Starmer's Labour Party won a thumping majority in Parliament and promised a decade of national renewal. Pakistan's forthcoming budget confronts a difficult reality. The formal economy is overtaxed, investment remains weak, exports struggle to compete regionally, and salaried individuals face rising tax burdens even as inflation erodes purchasing power. Yet meaningful tax relief appears fiscally difficult at a time when economic growth is slowing, debt servicing costs remain elevated, and IMF discipline continues to constrain policy choices. This dilemma has triggered an important national debate. If Pakistan wishes to reduce the burden on documented businesses and taxpayers, how can it compensate for the resulting loss in revenue? The answer lies in recognizing that Pakistan's fiscal challenge is no longer simply one of raising taxes. It is increasingly about how all parts of the state can share responsibility for reviving industry, employment and economic growth. This responsibility includes the provinces in which employment is potentially created.
The Middle East's largest annual contemporary art fair opened in Dubai on Friday against the backdrop of the Iran war, drawing fewer galleries and a more local crowd than usual. This year, in its 20th edition, Art Dubai opened a month late and in a scaled-down format after the regional conflict forced the organisers to revise their plans.
Milan Fashion Week said on Friday it would invite participating brands at its high-profile runway shows not to show fur, in a partial concession to animal rights activists following pressure. The National Chamber of Italian Fashion, CNMI, which organises Fashion Week, has been under pressure from animal activists to ban fur at the shows. Something Fashion Weeks in London, New York, and various others have already done.
Berlin. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said on Friday he would advise his children against living or studying in the United States at the moment, citing a rapidly changing social climate and limited opportunities even for the highly educated. The remarks highlight tensions between the United States and its European allies under President Donald Trump, with disputes over trade, the wars in Ukraine, and now Iran putting the NATO alliance under strain.
PTI M&A's question centres double standard over worsening law and order in both provinces. Tariq Fazal Chaudhry says it with CM bug provincial subjects. Lawmakers from the opposition PTI on Friday questioned why terrorism and lawlessness continued to afflict Balochistan and called out what they termed the government's double standard when it came to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Decision comes in response to traders' protests, appeals by Shopping Malls Association and general public. Lahore Chamber of Commerce welcomes move, describes it as important business-friendly step. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Governor CM resolved to ease restrictions in their province as well, Lahore, responding to traders' protests and appeals by the Shopping Malls Association and general public to revise 8 p.m. business closure timings. The Punjab government has granted partial relief and lifted the restriction on market timings until June 1.
Kawang Nu Jin needs fuel to plough and fertiliser to nourish his rice as planting season approaches. But the ships carrying his crucial cargo are trapped 2,000 miles away by Iran's stranglehold of one of the world's most important waterways. Now the farmer is running the calculations. Can he survive when the costs of fuel and farming come to more than he earns from selling rice?
US President Donald Trump has said he would accept a 20-year suspension by Iran of its nuclear program in what appears to be confirmation of a shift in position away from a demand for a total end to it. Trump said it had to be a real 20 years. Previously, he has called on Iran to permanently cease enriching uranium, a stage in making a weapon, and to be prevented from ever acquiring nuclear weapons.
A retired French sports teacher is in custody after being caught making sexual propositions online to a 14-year-old girl, except that the 14-year-old girl was not a 14-year-old girl.
At least 7 Palestinians have been killed and dozens injured in 2 Israeli airstrikes on a residential building and a civilian vehicle in Gaza City, according to medical sources. The deaths on Friday come as Israel said it carried out a strike on Izz al-Din al-Haddad, the head of the armed wing of Hamas in Gaza.
The lawyers for Mahmoud Khalil, a former Columbia University student targeted for deportation by the United States government over his pro-Palestine advocacy, have called on an immigration appeals court to reopen and terminate his case. The latest legal appeal points to new evidence, some of which was documented in media reports, suggests that the Trump administration secretly engineered the outcome of his immigration case to duration to make an example of him.
A former security chief in Mexico's Sinaloa state has been taken into US custody on allegations linked to the Sinaloa cartel, according to federal court records and reports unsealed late Thursday. Gerardo Merida Sanchez, 66, who served as Sinaloa's public security secretary from September 2023 to December 2024, was arrested in Arizona on May 11 before being transferred to New York.
One of the most entertaining moments in VC this week was a piece of rage-bait marketing from General Catalyst in a now viral post on X that parodies the old Mac versus PC commercials. The venture firm, better known as GC, posted a VC versus GC video on Wednesday. The VC was played by a tall actor in a baggy shirt and vest with a distinctly large bald head, an apparent dig at Andreessen Horowitz co-founder Mark Andreessen. But the real Andreessen never looks that dishevelled.
Investors can't seem to get enough of RJ Scaringe or his ideas. In less than a decade, the serial entrepreneur best known for his EV company Rivian has raised us more than $12.3 billion from venture capital firms, as well as strategic and institutional investors for his 3. X, the latest $400 million raise for his new venture, or Bayed. Investors are still happily piling in.
A year ago, United States-China relations reached one of their lowest points when Donald Trump announced his Liberation Day tariffs. The US president made some concessions when he met his Chinese counterpart, Xi Jinping, a few months later. Pakistan's Fatima Sana has broken the record for the fastest half-century in women's T20 international cricket matches with a 15-ball 50 against Zimbabwe and Karachi, Pakistan. Playing at home, the all-rounder top scored with 62 runs off 19 balls as Pakistan beat the visitors by 133 runs and sealed the series 3-0 at the National Stadium on Friday.
Israel and Lebanon have agreed a 45-day extension to a shaky ceasefire following 2 days of negotiations in Washington, D.C., the U.S. State Department said. We hope these discussions will advance lasting peace between the two countries, full recognition of each other's sovereignty and territorial integrity, and establishing genuine security along their shared border, said State Department spokesman Tommy Pigott. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says strikes targeting Russia's oil industry and military production facilities are entirely justified after Moscow flattened an apartment block in Kyiv, killing at least 24 people. On Friday, Zelensky warned that Russia's attacks would not go unpunished, saying he had discussed long-range strikes with senior military, security and intelligence officials as a day of mourning was observed in Kyiv, following Thursday's attack on a 9-story apartment block in the capital's Darnitsky district.
China has agreed to buy 200 Boeing jets, with a potential for the order to rise to as many as 750 planes, United States President Donald Trump has said, adding that the planes would have GE aerospace engines. The deal includes approximately 200 planes and a promise of up to 750 if they do a good job, Trump told reporters on Air Force One on Friday. More details about the deal, such as which type of jets and when the order would be delivered, not immediately available.
Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney is visiting Alberta, days after a separatist movement in the Western province faced a major legal setback in its push for a referendum on the issue. Carney's visit on Friday was officially to unveil a new agreement laying the groundwork for a crude oil pipeline alongside the province's Premier, Danielle Smith.
There are currently 10 global cases of hantavirus, the World Health Organization, WHO, has said, lowering its earlier figure of 11 after a person who was thought to have contracted hantavirus was confirmed to be negative. Maria van Kerkhove, the director of the WHO's Department for Epidemic and Pandemic Preparedness and Prevention, said on Friday that the earlier count included one individual who had an inconclusive test. We've had further confirmation from the United States that person was negative.
It's no secret that AI data centers have been straining the grid, but Silicon Valley has been relatively insulated from it all, thanks to high land and power prices that have pushed hyperscaler projects elsewhere. The tech elite might soon get a taste of the power crunch, though. The Bay Area's vacation land, Lake Tahoe, has less than a year to find a new energy supplier. A hotel check-in system left more than 1 million customer passports, driver's licenses and selfie verification photos to the open web after a security lapse. The data is now offline after TechCrunch alerted the company responsible. The hotel check-in system, called Tabik, is maintained by the Japan-based tech startup Trekria. According to its website, Tabik is used in several hotels across Japan to check guests in and relies on facial recognition and document scanning to check guests in.
The Capital Development Authority, CDA, has approved the abolition of 062 vacant and redundant positions as part of a broader right-sizing and austerity drive aimed at streamlining administrative operations and reducing financial pressure on the public sector. The decision was formalised through a notification issued by the Human Resource Development Directorate on May 6, 2026, following approval during the CDA board's 5th meeting held in late April. The State Bank of Pakistan, SBP, has launched a nationwide Go Cashless campaign for Eid-ul-Adha 2026 aimed at promoting secure and convenient digital transactions in cattle markets across the country. The initiative forms part of the central bank's broader strategy to reduce reliance on cash and accelerate digitization of Pakistan's trading periods during one of the country's busiest seasonal trading periods.